What's up? Today we're gonna take a look at the 6 best opening traps after the first move pawn to e4. Now let's start with the Caro-Kann Defense. After that, white goes knight c3, pawn takes, knight takes, and one of the main lines here is knight to f6. This move actually became widely popular nowadays. I'm not exactly sure why, but a lot of players really love playing this. And the main response for white is the natural knight takes f6, and after that there's extensive theory, but there is also a bit more tricky move queen to d3. You're protecting the knight with a queen. And it sets the first trap, because your opponent may be tempted to play bishop f5, taking advantage of this pin. But in this case, you can have the discovered check, knight takes f6, and after that you can happily win the bishop on f5. I'm taking a move back here, and let's see what else black can play instead of the round move bishop to f5. What if you're facing a more experienced opponent? In this case, they know that there is a strategic rule which says that if your opponent plays a dubious move, you gotta punch him in the center. And that's why in this game black played pawn to e5, which looks like a perfectly logical response of black. And after pawn takes, black plays queen to a5. Another similarly strong move of black, because here the point is this is a check to the white's king, therefore white has to blockade it, and after that queen takes e5. And now it looks like white has a problem because of the pin along the e-file, and the black's knight is also threatening the white's knight on e4. Therefore, at first it looks like black completely succeeded in refuting the white's dubious move queen to d3 earlier in the game. However, white found a beautiful counter blow. He castles queenside, and after that black is somewhat in the crossroad. They may take the white's knight with either a queen or a knight, and queen takes the knight does not really work because white just goes rook e1 and white wins the queen thanks to the pin. Therefore, this is quite clearly not a good option for black. Let's take a move back, and in this case black decides, okay, but why not to just grab the white's knight with his own knight. And after that, here comes the boom, queen d8. White sacrifices the whole queen, because after that, here comes bishop g5, and after that, if the king goes to e8, there's checkmate with a rook from d8, or, which was played in the game, let me take a move back here, in the actual game, black played king c7, which allowed another beautiful checkmate, bishop d8, checkmate. Really cool game between Reti and Tartakova from 1910, and it's still beautiful. This was one of the really cool traps against the Caro-Kann Defense, and there is another trap which is also really powerful, which I covered in my first part of this video, best opening traps against e4. I'll link it below and maybe I'll show it on the screen so you can watch it after watching this one. And let's move on to another opening. How about the French defense? What if your opponent goes pawn to e6? In this case, you continue with pawn to d4, pawn to d5, knight c3, and here a lot of the players, especially amateur level players, go knight to f6. And this move is a bit dubious, even though there is nothing terribly wrong with it, but after an exchange, it a little bit exposes the black's queen, and after that the game may follow like this. Both players are continuing their development, and in this case, if black castles or plays knight to c6 or anything else, you can play bishop g5, thus trapping the queen on f6. And even though it looks like a fairly simple trap, but a lot of players go right into it, just because so far it looked like both players are just developing their pieces and black didn't expect anything terrible to happen to them right now, but, you know, it's time to resign now. You may wonder, hey Igor, but what if I face a more experienced opponent who will not let me trap him that easily? Well, let me show you the line for more experienced players. In this case, in the French defense, they would probably not go knight to f6 because it is indeed a suspicious move, but they may play bishop d7, and this is a solid move even grandmasters played. And after that, the idea of black is that they can solve the problem of their bad bishop, which is typically passive in the French defense, but in this case they managed to relocate it to a really great diagonal. In this case, you go bishop d3, here black may play knight to f6, and again, like I said, even strong players play like this as black, because in this case, at first it looks like the situation is very similar to the previous example, and white can just trap the black's queen by playing bishop g5, right? But an experienced opponent will certainly anticipate that move. However, they may think that they can refute this idea by playing bishop takes f3. And in this case, they hope that thanks to this counter blow, they manage to trick you. Because now, because of this intermediate, exchange on f3, and it also attacks the white's queen. For example, if white just recaptures here, then black can grab the bishop on g5, and now he's a piece up, and therefore he's winning. So if I take the move back here, after bishop takes f3, black is thinking that they could trick you, that you miscalculated, and they're now winning a piece. However, in this case, first of all, you say something like this. And after that, you play queen to d2, a really sudden move. Instead of capturing something, you're just playing a calm move of your queen to d2. And all of a sudden, black realizes that their queen is trapped anyways. And yeah, the only square where the queen can possibly go to is to capture the pawn on d4, but in this case, it fails due to bishop b5, discover check to the black skin, and on the next move, you grab the queen anyway. And so that is a really hidden trap. That's why it can work against really experienced opponents as well. So far, we didn't talk about the most classical response of black pawn to e5. Let's see what you can do here. First of all, you develop your knight, and after that, you may go bishop c4. Here in this case, of course, there is a variety of things that black can do, but one of the common reactions of your opponent is to play bishop e7. What's the reason of that move? Well, black knows that in case they're trying to go knight f6 right away, they have to know how to face this knight g5 attack against their f7 square, right? And, this involves knowing a lot of theory, and not many players wish to do that. And the same thing is true if they go bishop c5. That again may go into a lengthy theory lines with either the gambit response b4 or the classical response c3. And therefore they prefer to play safe and just go bishop e7, knowing that now you certainly cannot go knight g5, the square is protected, and so black may hope to just play knight f6, castle, and finish their development with no problems. However, right here we are preparing a really unpleasant surprise for them. You're just playing pawn to d4 right here, and after they capture it, you play pawn to c3, offering another pawn. And at this point, there are a couple issues for black. First of all, some of your opponents will just capture the pawn because it looks like there's nothing wrong with it, but in fact, it fails to queen d5. And all of a sudden, here comes the straightforward checkmate on an f7 square, and black cannot protect it with the knight because you'll just take the knight, and after that, suddenly the checkmate in 1 is coming and black is defenseless. He can't protect the f7 square by knight to h6 because white will simply exchange the knight, and after that he'll still deliver the same checkmate. That's a really cool opening line where black is seemingly safe at first, but then all of a sudden they lose the game right away. There is also another kind of similar variation where you can utilize a similar idea but against another setup of black, but it is still very effective. But before we go into it, let me also make a quick announcement that if you wish to build a rock-solid opening repertoire for black against white playing pawn to e4, then you may wish to check out our new course Fighting e4 by clicking the link below the video or on the screen, and that will allow you to build a solid opening repertoire for black, complete opening repertoire, so that you know that you are secure, you are not going to fall into any kind of opening traps, and on the contrary, very often you'll be able either to actually win the game following your opening preparation, or at least get in a superior position out of the opening to maximize your chances later on. So if you're interested, click the link below the video and you can get it right now with all the bonuses and discounts. Now let me show you how you can utilize an idea that we have already discovered in another opening. Black still played pawn to e5 on the first move, and here you play pawn to d4 to attack the e5 pawn once again. And in this case, black may wish to go knight d7, because knight c6 can fail for different reasons. Well, it's not bad actually, but white can either take and after that grab the queen on d8, which is option 1 for white, or white can push the pawn forward and kick this knight away from c6. All in all, black may wish to just move their knight to d7 instead of c6. Therefore, they may wish to play here knight to d7 and you go bishop c4. All of a sudden, this position is already extremely dangerous for black, even though it looks like just a few moves well played so far. What's the problem for black? In case they go bishop to e7, Here comes a similar idea that we already discovered. You can trade the pawns on e5, and after that go queen d5 with the very same idea of checkmate on f7, and black is still defenseless. We have just analyzed that bishop to e7 is losing. What if they just go knight to f6, and now for sure you cannot bring your queen to d5? Well, in this case, they've got another problem. Here, first of all, you trade the pawns on e5, and in this case, in case black recaptures, you've got the winning move knight g5. Here, black is having a big issue with the defense of their f7 square, and you can grab it there on the next move, probably with the knight. Thus, you'll also attack the black's queen and rook, and black is just losing here. So that is completely bad for black. Let's take a few moves back here and check out what if black captures on e5 with the knight. That is still losing, and the following variation is quite beautiful. First of all, you capture bishop takes f7. That's not really a sacrifice, you're rather trying to deflect the black's king so that you can grab the queen on d8. At first it looks like you just want the queen, all's cool, but black's got an interesting counterblow, bishop b4 with check and discarded attack of your queen. And in this case, so that you don't lose the queen for nothing, it's important to move it back to d2, so that at least you get the black's bishop in this trade, and after this exchange, you recapture with a knight so that it protects the pawn on e4, which is also pretty important, so that black cannot capture it with their knight. And now if we analyze the final position of this forcing line, you can see that white is a pawn up, and normally you should win this position, but of course there's still quite a lot of play here, but again, it gives you a winning position. And here comes a cool line you can use against the Scandinavian Defense, which is another opening line extremely popular on an amateur level because it's quite active and sometimes even aggressive for black. Here white goes knight c3, queen a5, pawn to d4, knight f6. So far we're going just following the main line. And in this case, you start deviating from the main line by playing bishop c4. Now, normally in almost any opening, white would play knight to f3, but in this case you have to know a lot of theory and it's not as tricky as the line which I'm about to show you. So you go bishop c4. The thing is, you're delaying the development of your knight of g1, and first of all, it does not give black an option to pin your knight with the bishop g4 move, and secondly, it also leads to a very interesting attacking opportunity for white later on. Let's say black goes pawn to c6, standard move. You go here bishop d2, which is a little bit putting pressure onto the black's queen on a5 indirectly, even though black is certainly ready for that if they're playing Scandinavian Defense. So they just go bishop f5, you're playing queen to e2, and so far it looks like just normal development, classical line. And black may not suspect that there is anything special here with the fact that your knight is still on the g1 instead of being on f3. However, in this case, if black continues playing development moves and they just go knight to d7, in this case, there is a trick for white that you can use right here in this position, and I'd like to ask you to think about it and to write it down in the comments below if you can find it. How would you play here as white? And yeah, write it down in the comments below, and later on definitely you'll be able to remember this line and to use it as white against a lot of players who play Scandinavian Defense against you. Please don't forget that the special offers in our new course, Crushing E4, will be gone after just a few more days, so if you're interested potentially, you may click the link below the video or on the screen and check this out. Also, I hope that these opening traps will help you win a number of beautiful games. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Best of luck in your chess battles, and I'll talk to you soon.